Hi, welcome to the first episode of The Graduate Mentor. Today, we will be featuring a special guest who I've known for many years, Dr. Georgos Nicolaou. He is a lecturer in space plasma physics at Motor Space Science Laboratory, University College London in the UK. He has a strong background in plasma instrumentation with great research experience spanning from instrument calibration to instrument modeling. Georgos, he has a strong track record of space plasma data analysis. He joined the SWA team back in 2017, and since then he developed several analysis tools to advance the scientific outcome of SWA observations. He joins the SWA team's meetings on a regular basis, and he has already contributed to numerous publications using SWA data. Please follow along and listen to his story. He has a lot to say for you to learn from. I hope you enjoy our first episode.
All right. Well, welcome to the first episode of The Graduate Mentor. Today, we have a really special guest. He was my roommate in college, and we spent many years together. We worked together. We shared an office together, shared a lab together at some point. And today, I want to welcome Georgios Nicolaou. Did I say it right? Georgos Nicolaou?
Exactly. I think we stayed together long enough to teach you some Greek.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right,
absolutely.
to my name, yes.
Yeah, so
Nice.
George, as I was talking to you at the beginning of this series, the the point of this talk, of this series of videos, is to help the incoming students from high school, middle school, even undergrad that want to try to choose a path if they want to go into industry or in academia, or they want to pursue a PhD or something. Try to give them some clarity into how we can move forward. Um, the hurdles that we're going to encounter, that we have encountered, how we solve those issues,
Mhm.
some of your best experiences, what made you dream about what made you become a PhD, some of those best moments, and some of the moments that probably made you cry as well. So, so
Yes.
that's the point of this series, and I just wanted to have a little bit of your background. So, what motivated you to pursue a PhD in the first place? First, to give you a little bit of your background, where you came from, um, your undergraduate story, what made you pursue that career, and how did you get to the United States?
All right. So, interesting. Yes, you take me well back now. Yeah. I will not say that I was determined from very young age to do what I'm doing right now. I kind of found it on my way here. So I remember the last classes of high school. I think the first thing I said I want to become is pilot, which is not my recent profession, of course. I remember also changing my mind, wanted to become a musician, but it was the very last year of high school that really physics really got into me, and I said, okay, that's something really important for me here. The feeling of getting a pen and paper and try to understand some of the daily problems, why the swing is doing this periodic movement, for example. Let's write the equation for it. So that was the spark, I would say, that I felt about physics.
Yeah, I understand.
Uh, yes. And so I stick to that plan, and I said, okay, I'm going to sit the necessary exams in order to get me to the university. By the way, all of this was done in Cyprus, the country that I was born and raised. And after my military service in Cyprus, I already had the position in university, meaning that I passed successfully some exams. And I was ready after 2 years of military service to go to Greece,
So is it
in Athens.
mandatory for you to do a military service in Cyprus?
Yes, it used to be 25 months service mandatory for every male in Cyprus. Now it's reduced to 14 months, I believe.
Okay. I,
Still mandatory.
yeah.
So yes, that was done. I was done that. Oh, I was finished by 2005. Then I moved to Athens, the National and Kapodistrian University, where I start my basic bachelor degree in physics. And I was really into it. And the third year of the undergrad course, we had the introduction to astronomy. And there was another new spark there, right? I said, okay, physics are cool, or physics is cool. Still, my
Yeah.
English.
That's okay. English is perfectly fine.
So yeah, but astronomy is a level up for me, and then I start investigating options to have undergrad thesis supervised by astronomer in the university. So I got more into the let's say I became a little bit more specialized in space physics topics and solar physics topics, and I think that will really determine my master degree path because I wanted to learn more and more after graduating. So I stayed in the same university for 2 years. That was the master degree duration in Greece. And then I wanted even more.
Yeah.
And I asked my supervisors about possible options, and they suggested, among other institutes among the world, they suggested the Southwest Research Institute in San Antonio. And I remember I was taking a look at the flyer of the PhD positions at University of Texas in collaboration with Southwest. And I don't know exactly what it was. Maybe it was just the picture of the lab, these big machines that I had no idea what they were doing. But it seemed that it's amazing, right? And
Yeah.
I read that space missions are pretty much brought there, built there, calibrated. And of course, that was so magic for me, coming from a university that was mostly from, well, the focus was more theoretical, still laboratory, but not involved in space missions, right? So when I saw that, I didn't hesitate. I immediately applied, and I got positive response, and that what brought me to USA and the
So
PhD.
yeah, so you had the possibility to also go to school in England because being from Cyprus, you have basically have a residency or some all the privilege that a citizen has in England, right?
I actually had the English passport since very young age because of my father. So it would be much easier, maybe. But I was young and thirsty for adventures and knowledge, so
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really thought about convenience in that term. I
Okay.
just saw the picture of the flyer and I said, okay, I mean, that's definitely what I want, or what I think I want,
Yep.
and there you go.
So okay, so now that you went came from Cyprus, you went to Athens, and from Athens you came here. So as an international student, what were some of the challenges? Well, I know, especially at first, what were some of the first challenges that you face here as somebody coming from a different country and
Hmm.
trying to adapt to the U.S. academic system, and how do you overcome them?
Yeah, should I take a step back before I go to the academic problems? Let's say challenges. It's also the personal challenges, right? The first moment you just leave a country, and okay, as a Cypriot living in Greece, it was not. It was like living in my own country. It is still the same language, same habits. It's just 1 hour flight, but
Mm-hmm.
making the step, having a transatlantic flight, um, have the having well, I had to say goodbye to many friends. I knew I was not going to see them soon enough, and you land in a very different country in a sense. Like nobody's speaking your language anymore. You have to adjust your ears and your communication skills to a whole new language. And of course, maybe it's different to be taught English in school and practice it twice a week. And it's different to really need it every day, talk to the phone, struggle to really hear and understand what people are talking about at the phone.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you have to make really important. communication, phone calls, right? You have
Yeah.
to settle, you have to talk to agencies about paperwork, about your social securities. So all these, from the beginning, they were quite overwhelming for me, at least. Plus the socializing was a little bit hard at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
San Antonio was a big city. You could not really walk unless you're downtown. If you don't have a car, uh, you feel a little bit of, I was feeling a little bit of isolated. But that changed completely after I just met, a couple of friends. Then I just knew, okay, I have a buddy to go and have a drink and chat, a coffee, and talk about daily issues. It's much, much easier when you start talking about even something that seems so big struggle. When you talk about it, okay, sure. I mean, we're gonna go through
Yeah.
that,
Okay.
right?
So when it came to your friends and the people that you met here, how different were there from the friends that you had in Cyprus, for example? Was there a big discrepancy? Was it hard to adjust to a different culture when it came to that?
Really, to be honest, I was not really uh, have the impression that the people are different. They're doing different things. Yes, the habits are a little bit different. The way you have fun in Greece, yes, because of the weather. You go to the beach all the time. In San Antonio, you don't have the beach nearby, so you will do something else. So
The rodeo.
uh,
You go to the rodeo.
it's all you just gather around the house or around a swimming pool and have a barbecue. So I think the need to have fun and being social, it's kind of universal. So I felt that people were uh, the same pretty much.
Yeah.
Yes, the habits are different, but this I didn't have any struggle on that. They tell I am quite adjustable, so maybe that's me, but I think it shouldn't be a big deal for at least all the people I met and talked to, and other international students. I think they found their way to have fun and socialize
Yeah.
with people of very different cultures if there is a positive attitude about it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's great. I mean, you had a lot of friends when you were here.
I had very good friends, you, of course. I mean, seriously, I think just having someone to even live together for a while, it was quite helpful we can talk about some rough times for sure.
Yeah.
And it was really important that I was staying with someone like you who were always open to hear, share your own experiences because you also have a background that is, you have to go through some adjustments. And it already felt much better when you have someone say, yes, yes, I know, because.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would have made it easier for you? Because you were telling me, for example, when you were trying to do all the administrative stuff, calling from Greece and calling over here, what would have made it easier for you to transition from Greece to the United States?
Sure. Just trying to remember. One of the biggest struggles I had was the little bit of the bureaucracy that I think it's everywhere, right? So you go to a new country, nobody, you don't exist until you make some official paperwork. And
Yeah,
there, I think it was just simple mistakes that were happening, like misspelling my name. So the paper would delay to go from one agency to the other, or the other agency could not connect it because a letter in my name was wrong. Um, I had also some struggles to bring some transcripts from my masters, and some classes could be recognized in the new system. So that took a while. In the meantime, I had to take some courses. So I kind of, let's say, I had to retake some of the same courses that I did in my master's in the US system. But, at the end of the day, that's fine. You just learn it better. So no complaints. So what would have been better? How it could be better? Well, okay, yeah, that's something. If I had someone like an international student who has been through that before from the very first step, I think that will be the best.
Yeah. So now you're here. You're here in the United States. You have a place to live. You started living in the dorms at UTSA, right?
Yes. When you say now, you mean back then, my present.
Right. But I'm following the timeline of your
Sure.
career at this point.
So yeah, 2011, I'm moving to the US. I start staying in the very first place I was living at was the dorms at UTSA, University of Texas at San Antonio.
Mhm.
Yes. So what do you want me to tell you about that?
Well, I mean, how was your experience in the dorms?
Yeah, interesting. I was okay. So the very first time I opened the room, I see another person inside, and I didn't know this system. I didn't know that I will have another person in the actual, literally, this it's just one room with two beds.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit drawback in the beginning, but I immediately start socializing with the person, and it ended up being quite a good relationship. Uh, just someone to have fun and take a walk during some afternoons after studies, share your coffee with. So I was quite positive about it, and he was too, and that's why it ended up being a quite positive relationship.
Yeah, I think
Um,
those relationships are important, especially at the beginning, because
yeah,
most people that are there for the first time, they don't know anybody. So when they put two people in the same room, it forces you to create that relationship with that person.
yes, I not. I guess they're not all the relationships peaceful. If you force someone to live with someone else, maybe that will be the dynamics could be some lead to some disasters, maybe.
Yeah.
But that was I don't really know any of this situation. Nothing that I am aware of, at least, happened.
Yeah.
And my experience was very positive.
So when you were here, what were you studying? Because you started working at you study at UTSA, but you did your work at Southwest Research Institute.
Exactly.
So what was, first of all, why did you apply specifically for Southwest Research Institute, and what were you pursuing in that institute, and what was your goal?
Yes. So I would say the overall goal was to learn more. That was the motivation. And as you may remember, I told you about what seeing this lab in the flyer and in the printed picture. And that was just magic. I know, yeah, I'm gonna do science missions. I'm gonna get involved and design space instruments. So I think that goal was set quite early. Maybe you remember when we were sharing offices that we were into designing instruments and we're getting
Yep.
our hands dirty with simulations of space flight space instruments.
So what was the coolest
And
instrument that you worked on? Because you were there for a while. You were there for a few years.
yeah. So the first instrument I worked with was the Jade Eye, the ion sensor that is on board Juno now.
Mm-hmm.
And then my whole PhD was analyzing data from SWAP, the Solar Wind Around Pluto instrument that was on board New Horizons. And later on, yeah, we also worked in the lab for some designs that were later proposed to fly for specific missions or for more general concepts to be improved.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you're right. So we did the studies at UTSA, but we were research assistants. So we had to do research work at Southwest Research Institute. So that was quite a good split of time, right, between studies, classes, and actual research work. The goal was to really get involved in data analysis of space missions and instrument design.
Yeah, that was a really exciting part of the job. And I think at some point I don't know if you remember when we had the James Webb Telescope,
Yeah,
the dish. It was in one of the biggest labs at
yeah.
CERN. And oh yeah, how can you forget? Yeah, I'll never forget that. That was a pretty amazing experience. So now, when you got your PhD, your degree in physics, you had a choice. You could have gone into teaching, you could have gone into industry, you could have stopped with your bachelor's, maybe stopped at your master's, but you carried on to your PhD, and then you did several postdocs afterwards. So what made you continue to all the way to your PhD and followed by some postdocs?
You know what? I think I really love doing research. Teaching is great. So I was doing it occasionally, or tutoring some other students. So that's great too. But I could not think myself as a pure teacher, maybe not that it's not. I mean, it's great. But me personally, I really like to explore things. I really want to get my hands dirty with data, instruments, this type of creativity. Um, Now I'm also lecturer, so I have to teach, and I do both. It's a nice split of time, and teaching is a creation as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
People in industry also create amazing things, and we even collaborate with many of these old colleagues still because they moved on to industries that make space supplies or data analysis even. So I just felt my personal preference. Also, these little bit more relaxed times, we can work really late at night if we have inspiration, and then go a little bit later.
Yeah,
Um,
you were a night owl. You like to work at 2 in the morning or at 4, and
yes,
where people like to work during the day. So
yes, that's also my style still, and and I that's my way, right? That's how I saw myself, and that lifestyle suited me very well. Plus, the conferences of this job, right? They're quite attractive reason to
yeah.
be active in academia and go to conferences and share your results and get the excitement of exchanging knowledge with other researchers. That's something I personally love.
So let me ask you, you mentioned that you love doing research and that's your passion and everything. For somebody who has no idea, who has never been through the path that you have walked, how
Mhm.
would you explain to them what research is and how do you get there?
All right, very nice question. I don't even know if I ever think answering precisely what research is, but it's all about investigation, I would say, judgment, application, and try to really interpret what the results may be after a good judgment and going back to sources and comparisons with previous findings. So it's a kind of a global, it's not like a narrow way of going somewhere. It's really have eyes open, collect as much as you can and have the luxury of time to do. And if it's for example, a theory research, yeah, is involving a lot of reading and equation writing and application in pen and paper or computer models.
Mm-hmm.
In data analysis, you have to download data and get on your computer programming, test theories to your data, see what models fit to that, and come up with something new. Uh, that's how I live it, at least.
Can you give me an example of a very, very
Anecdotal.
brief research description? So how do you come up with the idea, how it was developed, and what did you get out of it?
All right. Another nice way of putting life experience down. So let's say that I will go to a little bit more of a methodology research
Mm-hmm.
that was done lately. For example, I also do some instrument science, meaning that I want to investigate capabilities of instrumentation to be sent in space. So I knew from previous studies that when some conditions in space are met, some instruments of typical designs we have already perform a little bit purely depending on the environment they're located at, right? For example, when the environment is containing plasma that is cold and fast, plasma is the material that fills up the interplanetary space, we knew that the resolution of our instruments is not that great. That's a concept that pretty much is discussed among the community. So my goal then, I set a goal to say, okay, now I'm going to build a model of these instruments. I'm going to understand how this instrument works, and I'm going to model it. And then I'm going to start putting artificial environments to it and try to simulate its performance and see what it gets out and compare it with the input that I put in the simulations. So that will tell me for what exact conditions this instrument can perform and giving me trustable results, and when are we going to be careful about the results and what adjustments we may have to do to have a correct interpretation of the measurements. So now you understand that this is something not exactly new. It was not the whole idea that the instrument doesn't work well in these conditions is not mine, but it was a new project coming out saying to community, look, when you have data in this range and this instrument, you may have to do these adjustments to get your scientific results accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So here is a new thing, the new contribution to the community. And of course, the whole effort behind is to read the literature, understand the instrument, construct the model in the computer, execute the simulations, interpret the results of the simulations, construct it in a nice presentation, write a paper, publish it. So that's all steps of research.
That is fascinating.
Well, yes, but of course, you know from your personal experience that they're not all the steps.
Yeah.
How to say in English?
Intermediate steps.
Roll pedals on the way. Of course, there are hard times.
Yeah.
Times your computer is crashing because you're doing something obviously wrong, and you may just sit there for a week looking at the computer and scratching your head.
Okay, so here's a follow-on question, and I think it'd be interesting to explain, because when we go through school, especially I went to school both in South America, and I went to school here in the United States. And I noticed that when you go to school, a lot of the times you expect for the teacher or the professor to always give you the next step. He's like, this is what you do next, and this is what you do next. And so there's a lot of hand holding along the way. At what point in your career did that hand holding stop, and you were responsible for determining what was going to happen next? Because in research, as you were saying before, eventually you have to come up with your own solutions. You have to come up with your own interpretation. Does anybody ever give you the answer?
Yes and no. So, well, let's take it from, let's say the beginning of PhD is always something like that. You need a mentor to really not holding your hand. If you need, yes, some guidance, of course. We're doing it now as lectures, right? When young PhDs come, yes, the first year maybe it's quite often that they will require some assistance, meet with you more than once a week, maybe discuss something, tell you their struggles, and provide ideas. Right? You don't really chew their food for them, but after constructive meetings and discussions, they find their way. So I would say for me, I felt completely independent in some projects. For sure, during my postdoc, my first postdoc, I was completely alone in terms of supervision on the actual topic. In my PhD, yes, I had my supervisor's assistants every now and then. As the longer you go on the way, the less you possibly need this help. But you raised a very interesting point. You said if someone is giving you the answers, yeah, you may be in a conference talking to someone when you're even 50, 60, or even retired scientist and talk about some idea. And after this discussion, you realize that either you gave the answer to yourself while talking, or the other person
That, yeah,
not even right. So this exchange of ideas, yes, answers are flying in the room,
that is
and
fascinating.
yeah. So yeah, you don't really have to be given the answer, but maybe if you just have your ears open or your eyes open and you see some other people presentations, you get the idea you need to solve yours.
Yeah. So, no, getting a PhD is not easy. So you go through a process. You come here with your bachelor's degree. You go through your master's, your PhD. So, what kind of growth do you have to do personally to go through
Mm.
the entire process and become successful?
Ah, nice. Well, let's say I'm not sure if I am detaching now the fact that my PhD was in a country that was the first country that for me felt different. So I had to do some growth in terms of dealing with bureaucracy in a way that I was not dealing before, manage my bills, build up my credit score, which is a thing we didn't have back in my country.
Yeah.
Be responsible for paying all my bills. Well, I was doing that in Greece too, but now I had to have a car. Um, being very far from any immediate help in economically speaking.
Hmm.
So yeah, that was some growing there too. Or well, and you, my friend, remember negotiating with car dealers also was something I had to learn.
You want to tell that story?
Maybe in a longer.
Yeah, that's a good experience.
And, yeah, and in terms of PhD, yes, I mean it's a different mentality of getting the work done. Like when you're a master, yeah, you still have to get your work done. But when you have a PhD and specific number of projects and you need to publish, so you know that other people will judge strictly your work. And some of the feedbacks may be not really good to the ears. So you get into the academia quite soon, I will say, when you go to this publishing business, writing theses, deal with hard timelines, and also when you're involved in space missions that they're gonna have to fly. So
Yeah.
then you understand what is a really strict deadline, and that hundreds of people maybe are relying on some piece you are supposed to contribute.
Yeah.
And I know PhDs sometimes have crucial positions, right? They build
Mhm.
a model that's going to predict something important, and it's quite good to have that beforehand. So yeah, all this brings you to the real world while you do the PhD.
So you brought up a good point on publications. And maybe a lot of other people that are listening to this don't know what publications are. You
Mm.
mentioned that in several different aspects. So, what are publications, and why is it so important for a PhD or a doctor in your career?
Yeah. So publications is a paper, usually. It could be 10 pages of written work. So let's say, let me go back to the project I described before about the instrument simulations and optimization to specific conditions and evaluations. So maybe people will understand that there is no point if I just do it and I just save it in the drawer of my desk and just let my neighbor know, but nobody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
science has to be shared. And it has to be shared not only with the space science community in my case, but to the wider communities, because it may have applications to many other problems or tasks that I don't even know. So that's, I would say that's a very important part of science. Don't keep it for yourself, share it with the people. We like knowledge, we like to share knowledge. And if you don't publish it, it's like you didn't do it. And so we go down, we make kind of a report, a structured study. This is the introduction, this is the motivation, this is why we need this study. Here is my data set, here is my models, here is the result or data analysis, and here is the conclusion. And these with figures and captions, the references, also very important to acknowledge previous work that they have done similar stuff or stuff that led to this work. And then you send it to a journal. There are quite many journals these days that they're separated into different topics. So for example, there's a journal of space weather. So if my instrument, for example, was specific to space weather, I may choose this journal. I will send this draft to the editor. The editor will send it to a peer review, as we say. So it will send it to either one or two or three other experts in the field that they will read it anonymously, give you feedback. And they will suggest to the editor to either accept this to be published in the journal or accept it after revisions, which could be minor, could be major, or if they think your work it doesn't meet the standards of a published paper, they will say to the editor, hopefully kindly, to reject it for now until it's improved massively. Yeah.
Nice. Looking back, what was the biggest turning point in your career, either academic or professionally?
Yeah, okay. Well, I think every time I was getting a positive position for an application I did, like for the second postdoc, or the first postdoc, the second postdoc, the permanent position now at the University College London. And of course, these were decisions that were always accompanied by a big change in life, for me at least, because two different postdocs were in two different countries, which were different than the country I did my PhD, and different than the country that I did my master's, and different than my birthplace. So I was changing countries every time. And yeah, so I guess these were quite important turning points in life, not just in career. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I guess they go hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit of what you do now?
Okay, so now I'm the title of the position is Lecturer of Space Plasma Physics, and this is in University College of London. But I am in the Space Physics department, which is is located in a very nice area in southwest countryside of London, in Surrey. So it's quite quiet and a bit remote, but the teaching is happening in London, so we're still quite close. We take the trains to go and teach master students in the main campus. So my job involves a lot of supervising master students and PhD students that they're based in the department. And we did maybe half of the time we do research or applying for research grants. So we're applying for money to develop instruments, analyze some space missions data, and discover something new.
Nice.
So yeah.
So how many students do you help? Do you supervise?
So I am the first primary supervisor of one PhD student. Every year I have one or two master students, and I'm their primary supervisor. And I am co-supervising another 3 PhDs and another 2 masters.
Yeah. Nice. How is that experience for you so far?
In the beginning was a bit, scary. The responsibility is great because, if you don't want to see your student getting to a point that has to face some disappointment because the research didn't go as planned, which is very common, right? It's fine. But the students, maybe the first time they meet that, including me when I was student, it's a little bit of a hard feeling. And now you know that it's your role to be the calm one and say you bit of a father too and a big brother, let's say. Say, okay, it's common. Let's take that from beginning. Let's see the alternatives. Let's make backup plans. And yeah, it may be a little bit scary in the beginning, but
Yeah, that's
it's
good. That's a good point. So I can imagine going from you only relying on, because it gets to a point like in your postdoc that you're relying on yourself.
yeah.
And yeah, you're on your own. You're an expert on what you're doing. You know your simulations. You have all the skills necessary. You have built yourself up to be where you need to be successful. And there's always trial and error. There's always failings and successes.
Yeah.
But as a mentor, what are some of the things that you have learned that you need to develop to be able to help another student?
Oh,
So,
nice.
as a supervisor, what skills do you need to be successful as a supervisor?
I'm still learning that. One thing I will say that came first during the learning curve was to just sit back and listen because you may interpret the reaction or what the student wants to say, or maybe feel that the student doesn't really say for different reasons what they are trying to.
Mm-hmm.
So, and ask questions if you feel there is no clearance on what is being told, or if you doubt that your advice maybe didn't reach the right point. For example, let's say a hypothetical example that a student is stressed or disappointed about the project, and you sense that. Maybe it's not the greatest thing to go there and say, "Oh, I see you're disappointed." No, it's just say,
Yeah.
have a conversation maybe and say, "Okay, what do you think about this part of the project?" And I think I was surprised how easily these topics that you think that maybe they were never going to be taught are just easily coming out because you just ask, what do you think about it?
Yeah.
So it's setting up a comfortable environment for chatting and communicating. I think that's one of the most important things, I believe. And of course, welcome new ideas. It's something. Some people, even more senior people like me, or even older, more senior, in conferences, you may get the feeling that they are not going to ask something because they think they didn't think it thoroughly, and it may sound silly. I think this should be you should be encouraging, especially the young people when they start their career, that they shouldn't be shy to to ask stuff, right? Nobody knows everything. Nobody will judge you for not knowing everything. And there is no other reason to get the information directly to you. Just ask the person who just presented something or your teacher.
Does that happen the other way around? I feel like the more senior a PhD or somebody in research, the less likely they would
Yep,
be to ask a question to somebody.
you're absolutely right.
So, what advice would you give like another supervisor? Because I've met some PhDs that, man, I'm afraid to approach them and ask them questions because they're really intimidating. So, what advice would you give supervisors like that?
That's, I mean, chill out. We're here to learn, right? And yes, it's not to judge who knows what. It's about sharing. It's, yeah, if you know something and you believe you know it better than anyone else, that's good. You're the specialist on this, so please, can you share it with me, who didn't happen to have this specialty and know this topic as good. And it's all about generating new ideas. You may be surprised. Okay, I was once told, I was sitting in this conference seminar, that the topic was specialized in really hardcore turbulence in space, which is not my topic. But because I was a little bit friendly with the speaker, I kind of approached kind of immediately after the seminar and said, okay, at this point you said that, I'm afraid I didn't get it. Is it because this is happening? And I was already defensive, a little bit holding it back because I was not sure. And then he said, oh, the way you just ask me gives me the idea to explain it a little bit differently next time. So thank you. So, okay, good. So you may be surprised by doing a question that you may think it's silly or it's gonna sound silly, that is actually really appreciated by the experts. It may be not, but that shouldn't make us being afraid of saying it, right? And that would be my advice to supervisors: just encourage people to communicate things, talk, and yeah, I mean, we're not gonna agree in everything. Since we investigate, we're still learning, doubting, so it's fine.
Yeah. What advice would you offer students who are considering pursuing a PhD?
I don't really like giving advices, especially that for such important things in life, right? You mean, okay, so you mean if the student is determined to go through.
Somebody made the choice, they know about a PhD, what it entails. What are some of the things that you want to tell them so that they can have a better experience in the PhD career?
I think my advice will not be much different from what I said before. Just don't afraid to go through it all the way. Just investigate, share, ask, wonder, doubt, confirm, discuss. It's all about interactions. I mean, share your knowledge, be positive for feedbacks, whatever is that feedback, and also give feedback back to other people. I don't think there is a magic recipe here besides enthusiasm and going all the way. It's not going to be easy all the times, but definitely if that's what you like, and you go with enthusiasm, you're going to get out of it with, how you say, with some goods on you.
Yeah.
You're going to gain stuff. Yeah.
There's always a point in your academic career where it's kind of like a turning point. You've just been spending all this time studying, reading, doing research, putting in the hours. You're putting in 20 hours a day. You're putting in, for a long time. And then it gets to that point that all that work that you have put in finally pays off. And then you feel this like fire of, man, I can't, this pinnacle it's a pinnacle moment that define that you finally say, oh my God, it was all worth it.
Yeah.
What was that moment for you?
Getting a secure position here in closer region of Europe, which is quite different from the US, is quite competitive as far as I understand. So working hard and being recognized and being offered a position like this in one of the top universities of the world and have the security of this permanent position was something I wanted. Let me say though that there are other people, as they go, they realize they want to go to industry, that this field is not for them. That's also something that pays off, right? The realization that this career path gives you some essentials to go somewhere else and thrive. It's fine, right? People change careers, change topics. So many successful people in industry, they just had few years of PhD program, but then just decide to change. That's also a success, if you ask me. We don't have to limit success by getting a degree and then do something with it on this specific topic.
Right. No, absolutely. I think a degree, it's a checkpoint. It's a milestone, but
Yeah, yeah,
it doesn't limit what you can do.
yes.
I think it's a starting point of the person that you can become.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So for me,
So,
what the position of my dreams, let's say, doing research and being paid, surviving from it,
mhm.
and have a desk, good colleagues, and all the sources to publish my stuff to the community.
Now, the final question. If you were to do it all over again, would you?
Absolutely.
Why?
I could not think myself anywhere else than be happier. I mean, yeah, I could do something else. I'm not saying that it's, but maybe that's how I learned now. So I will not change my habit, but I think I still remember really clearly the first spark of research, of space science, of physics, and that led me all the way here. So there was no other option, I think, in my mind. There was no other clear path. I was not between two things. It was that. So yeah, I will absolutely do that again.
Wow. Thank you. Well,
After some point, right? Remember the beginning, pilot and musician. So
yes.
between flying and being a rock star, but after some deterministic point, it was just that.
Yes, absolutely. So do you play still?
I still play. Music is my hobby, and I play quite a lot, and it helps. It helps the brain also to refresh on the research.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, next time we meet, we play together again.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember those times. Good times.
Yes.
Well, Dr. Nicolau, it has been a pleasure. And not just a pleasure, honestly, it's been my honor that, man, one of my longest friends has been here in my first
Mhm.
podcast, my first interview. I'm super thrilled that you were here, that you gave your time, and I can't wait to see you again. Maybe I'll fly to London one of these days and we'll get to play together. And
Yes.
and yeah, man, it's honestly, I miss you and
Me
I really
too.
appreciate the time that you spent with us today.
And the pleasure is all mine.